You and I were texting about this earlier, which I think is nice to say because we can tell the audience that I was like, oh, like there's been so many, but like which ones are the most helpful to actually talk about? It's all these life lessons, right? Like you're saying this, and I'm realizing too that a lot of it is me worried about the way that I'm parenting and how I will parent in the future, as opposed to needing to redo my son.
Parenting is hard. We could all use some inspiration to help us along this crazy journey called parenting. And that's what Modern Parenting Manual does, connecting you with parents doing interesting things that hopefully provide some inspiration to you too. Your time matters, so let's dive right in and hear from Becky Nielsen Filipski with Becky Nielsen Interiors about designing interiors that are child-friendly, along with her own personal parenting journey. Becky, designing a space for children can be overwhelming. On the one hand, as a parent, you want a nice space. It's your home. But you're worried if you make it too nice, your children won't be comfortable, or you'll be neurotic about spills, because let's be honest, spills always happen.
Yes, they do.
I think back to myself when we first moved into our family home a few years ago, and the process was hard.
Yeah.
Wallpaper's popular right now. I remember being worried about if our kids would draw on it or run into it, and then I'd have marker on the wallpaper or some big gash on it. And then I was also concerned about my kids' nurseries. That if I wanted to get the decor right, but I also wanted them to be comfortable in it. I feel like these are all things that we all face as parents in decorating our homes, and I know our audience will have similar concerns, and we're going to really enjoy hearing from you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the writing on the wallpaper, or jelly fingers, as we like to call it on the wallpaper, is something my clients ask me about all the time. There are really great ways to stain treat. So honestly, we kind of just do that a lot. Stain treat rugs, stain treat furniture, stain treat wallpaper, stain treat it all. And that kind of gives you a safeguard in a way. But your question about decorating for a young family, I sort of tell people, I'm like, look, you know how your kids are. I think each child is different. And my son, as you know, is a wild man. He's huge, but he also listens. And so from the very beginning, he has grown up in a decorated home. And it's like, these are mom's things, these are your things. You do not color on the walls. You do not throw things. You do not try to break things. And honestly, I kind of live like that and encourage my clients to as well. You know what your children's triggers are. Do they love to color? They're going to color on the walls. Maybe we do wallpaper later and we paint for now. Or like they rumble and tumble outside all the time and they're going to get on your sofa. Let's not do a white sofa. We'll do something with pattern. It'll hide it a little bit more. You have dogs. Okay, well, we're not going to do wool rugs. We'll do something that's a little bit more synthetic that can take the wear and tear of them better. Luckily, I think as long as you're sort of upfront with your concerns, particularly, it helps guide me on how I can help decorate.
That makes a lot of sense. I can see that. Let's talk now, before we really jump more into design-specific questions, about whether you becoming a parent has changed your approach at all to design work.
Hmm. Yes and no. My immediate thought was I just have so much more empathy for my clients. I don't think that it really changes the way I design. I've always had a very specific aesthetic and a way that I want a home to look. And I think my clients come to me because they like that look. However, I now, when I'm, trying to schedule an install, it's like, well, let's do it in one day. You guys go out. I will get it all done. You don't have to worry about it. The pitch of hiring me is let me take it off your plate. But also, like, are the kids napping from 1 to 3? Okay, well, we'll try to do the measuring in the morning or that kind of thing. So I don't know that my design aesthetic has changed after becoming a mother. I just understand that mothers in general and parents have so much more going on that it's like I'm a tool in their toolkit as opposed to me begging them for the answers.
That makes sense. And, I'm sure as a designer, you have your style. And of course it changes with your parent or your family that you're working with, but
Right.
that style probably stays consistent.
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I think luckily at this point in my career, people come to me for a specific look. But like we were talking about earlier, every project is different because of how the family lives in their home. So yes, of course, there's changes, but not necessarily to my aesthetic after having children.
Okay. Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about things you think about when designing child friendly homes. Are there really important things that you just keep at your top of your mind for parents?
I think not being scared of design is what I talk about a lot with my clients and encourage them to embrace. There are ways to do traditional design or design in general that are very family friendly, whether that's layering specific colors, not having just stark white, or if you do like the stark white neutral decor, then let's stain treat them or let's find something that's a washable fabric. I think I just encourage them to be very upfront with me in the beginning of how do you live in your home? What are you worried about? Don't I'm not offended by it. So just tell me so we can make it work because your home should be comfortable for you and your children, but it also can be really pretty. And there's ways to make that work. I talk a lot about antiques in what I do because I use them so often. And I tell people, I'm like, they're not precious. Like they're generally less expensive than new. They're generally better made than new. It's okay if they're worn because your kids are going to wear them too. It's these things that it's like have it be a livable environment. And I think it makes people feel more comfortable then too.
I like that. I really like that. Trying to keep, you know, what you might do for any frankly person that comes to you, but meshing it
Yes.
into, the important things for that particular family.
Yes. And just be upfront. I don't really care. Like you don't want any rugs because you're worried about them. Great. We'll paint your floors. Like there's ways to do things.
Okay. I like it. I like it. I think also what we forget about oftentimes, I think, in particularly if we're working one on one with a designer, is that it is our home, right? And yes, they might
Yes.
have opinions and frankly maybe sometimes strong feelings too, but at the end of the day, it's your home and you should feel the power to be able to really communicate your wants to whoever you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, great life lessons in general, right? But yes, for sure. And I think to tell people, I encourage them to be upfront with it because there really is so many ways we can incorporate things to make your home feel like you, but also feel comfortable.
I like that. Great, like lessons in general.
Yes.
We could all use that in our
Say what you want.
in
Yes,
our partnering
that's
relationships.
right.
It might make everything better.
That's right.
When you're designing, is there any like must do that you think about when you're designing for a family with kids?
Okay, so going back to your original question of has my design changed since having children? Yes, this I now am always like, where are all the toys going to go? They have so many things, and that generally is what parents don't know what to do with. Like, how do you organize them? Where am I going to store them? How am I going to put them away every day? But also now when we design kitchens, it's like, do you want a drawer lower down with the kid friendly spoons and cups, etc., so they can get them themselves? So yes, there is changes that I've done. So I think when a family has young children, I do. It's like, is there going to be a playroom? Are you wanting them to play in their own rooms? Where are we putting their things? Knowing that in 10 years, yes, of course it'll change. So let's figure out a way to transition with them as they get older too, and those storage or space usage. but yes, I think that's the sort of number one thing that I ask them. Like, where are you guys going to be living and playing? Let's make sure that's functional, but also able to tuck it away, make it pretty, and then transfer when they're older to, that becomes either sports storage or board games or extra coats for the winter time, that kind of thing.
It's funny you talk about that because what we did was our dining room is our playroom.
Yeah.
And we did it because we had an eating kitchen that has a full table that can be
Yeah.
used for frankly all seasons at the season of life we're in, which is young kids. And and I just wanted a place where their toys could really frankly mainly live, and then they would
Yep.
come out sometimes during the day, but at night they would always go back there. And then I didn't have a slide in the middle of our family room, and that was just stayed as a playroom. And when they get older, I'm sure we'll change it back into a dining room. It frankly might become a homework room slash dining room in
Yep.
our future. And that's really for us what we ended up doing.
Yeah. We have a playroom in our basement and it's the same thing. All the toys are down there so that my space can feel put together the majority of the time. But we also planned storage knowing that like in the future this will probably become like a movie room or, something like that. So there's storage for a TV, a big sectional. You can use it now, but also it'll transition when they're older too.
I can see that working. So we just talked about must do's. Let's talk about do not do's. When thinking about interiors that are involving children, are there any do not do's that you would recommend for families?
I No, and I know you're going to hate that answer, but I think if you love it and you want something, you make it work. Like I love wallpaper. My whole house is filled with wallpaper. My son's room is wallpapered. If I think that he probably at some point will scratch it or mark on it, yes, but it's okay. I know it's going to happen. Um do not do. Maybe one would be to design for a very very specific time in your life. Like I always encourage people when they're doing nurseries, like they're only in a crib for 2, maybe 3 years. Don't design your whole room around a crib, which is much smaller than a twin bed or a full size bed or whatever you're going to put in there. So maybe that type of mentality
Mm-hmm.
is, think forward a little bit more. But no, I really do encourage people if there's something that you love, do not be scared of it with kids. They either will learn or you just know going into it that this is going to be something that you're going to have to be careful around.
Yes, I see that working because I think what we can't forget too is our house is our house, right? And
It's the
and
whole family's house. Yes.
we have to find happiness among our family too.
Yes.
So
But I
designing
think
something that's like just for kids loses the parents.
and I have to say, and maybe this is my children growing up with an interior designer mother, but they also know, like if it's there from the very beginning, it's not new or weird. It's like, no, you can't draw on the walls. Like, what? No, that's not allowed. Like, you can't chuck this piece of china across the room. It's not allowed. And honestly, I have a wild son and he's never tried it. So I think you just
There's hope for
know and
everyone.
and you figure out. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if it continues, but
Um, let's talk for a minute about do-it-yourself parents, parents who are not working with as a designer, but would like some sort of insight or tips about from you about how do they make their home work for kids, but also for them.
so I think the number one thing that makes a home feel great that people don't realize is every single room needs to make sense with the room next to it. And I think that's sort of the trick of the trade with what we do. You walk into a home, you look left, you look right, you look straight ahead, they all match. So I think if you go into designing your own home with that in mind, you'll be very successful. I also would encourage you to DIY the things that you can, but the things that you can't, research somebody who can help you. I think an interior designer is somebody who comes in and is able to do everything for you. I think a great DIYer is somebody that knows what they can do and what they can't do, but is fine managing the people that they need to hire for help. So can you sew? Great. Make pillows, make your drapery. Are you or your husband handy? Fabulous. I bet you can build that built-in that you need to store all the toys in. But can you lay tile? Maybe not. Maybe that's somebody that you hire to help you with, but it's you spending the time finding the person and managing the person that's going to save you a lot of money from hiring somebody else.
I can see that. You're almost like, find a designer if it's in your budget that can do certain tasks for you. And you take on the
Yes.
tasks you can do.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. The benefit of a designer is, yes, making your home beautiful, but it also is a luxury in that we help with things that arrive damaged, things that don't come in on time, resourcing other things. And so I think if you're cool doing that on your own, that can save you a lot of money too. And also, all these designers now have consultations. You pay for an hour to like run through your questions or show them certain things that you were interested in and sort of get their okay on it, or things that they would do instead. And I think that's really helpful too. I know we're kind of going off topic, but
It's all connected, right? It's all connected. Figuring
yeah.
out a way, yes, do it yourself, but also there are other avenues that you might not think of traditionally in working with a designer that particularly today can allow you to actually work with a designer, but on perhaps a smaller scale.
Yes. And I think too, thinking of DIY and us talking about children's rooms, I think that's a good opportunity to do it yourself. I think a lot of people want their main spaces to feel really done because that's what they're showing people when they come over. That's where they're hanging out a lot. But honestly, I think you knowing your child and being able to do a lot of their room yourself is really great. And I think you kind of feel empowered doing it too, especially because you're like, well, if things need to change later, like it's fine. They're growing too. They might like something different. But what a great space, especially if they're of an age where they can help you. How fun, right? Like build a little stool together. They can help paint it. That kind of thing I think is a great space for that.
And it's the nostalgia, right? So much I
Yes.
think of parenting is about making memories, and I can totally
Yes.
see that being a frankly very special memory in both a parent and a child's life in
Yes.
going through that process, whether you do it yourself or with the incorporation of a designer or not. Incorporating your child into that, I think I can see that is one,
Yes.
empowering to them, also empowering to you as a parent, and can create some really special moments.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I distinctly remember for my 12th birthday, my parents gave me a little bit of money to redecorate my own room. And I sat there and did every inch of it with my mom. And it's like I learned about money then. I learned, oh, this costs something to pay somebody to do it. I bet I can just do that myself. And so let me try. And even now, I have clients all the time. If kids are above like 5 or 6, they're like, will you actually present their room to them? And I do these big design boards and sit down with the clients, and then we bring in the kids for those part. And it's really, really fun to see them interact with an adult first in a
Mm-hmm.
professional, like environment. But then also they're like, well, I kind of really love yellow. Is there a way we can put more yellow? I'm like, yes, let's do it in pillows. Let's do it here. And it's really fun. And then once it's done and installed, whichever, however you're doing it together or not, you're right, they feel so special. I chose that yellow pillow. I really liked it. And it's really empowering.
Really, really special. Let's switch for a minute, and I want to talk about like current trends. So
Okay.
sometimes people are all into fads, and I'd love to hear your opinion about whether there are any current trends that you think work especially well or frankly really poorly in family homes.
So I talk about this a lot with my friends and other designers. The trend now is to have an open concept kitchen, family room, main home. And I understand why. I think it makes the space feel bigger. I think parents also really appreciate being able to see their kids. Like they can be cooking and the child is right in the family room right next to them playing and they can have eyes on him. Having said that, I currently live in a very old home. It's a 4/4. Each room is very distinct. But I also have been to friends' homes that have an open concept. And I think the downfall is it's really loud.
Mm.
And a lot of the time, too, the TV is in the family room and it's really hard to turn it off, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm sitting right here having a snack. Why can't I also watch TV too? Obviously, that's a parenting choice. But for me, I really appreciate being able to section off rooms of my home. And it's like, nope, we're all just in the kitchen right now. Like, you can stay in here. That's what we're doing. It's not super loud. So that's a trend that I encourage people to experience before they make a decision. I think it's hard to have open concept. I think it's hard to make it feel cozy, to keep kids contained, for lack of better words. I know it's the trend right now, but I kind of feel like it'll go away, honestly.
Yeah, I can see that. Uh, and an interesting point about the TV in the family room and is it just automatically turn on?
Right,
Particularly if that's your main TV and you're
right.
all in there moving around. We read so much about screen time, and that's always something so particular for each family. But I really hadn't thought about how the location
Mhm.
of the screen could really impact, frankly, the amount of the screen time.
Yes. I have a lot of friends who have, an eat-in kitchen that has a cute breakfast area, but then it also is open to the family room. And it's nice because everybody is always together at all times. However, the TV is always on. And they've now realized as their children have gotten older that they're used to just zoning out and watching TV while they eat rather than having this communication. Again, family choices, but I do think that it's harder to pull back from that. And I, as an adult, when I go over to spaces, not speaking about kids, it's really loud. Like it echoes and it doesn't feel cozy and it's kind of hard to hear everybody. And then if the kids are there and you're trying to have an adult conversation, you can't separate. So I really do think that design is going to move back towards having a kitchen, probably having an eat-in kitchen, like you said, with a breakfast area, because I think people really love that. But having the sofa and the TV not visible from the kitchen.
Well, only time will tell.
We'll see.
I said only time will tell. We'll just see, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about kids for a little bit more, and really, do you have a favorite way to incorporate a child's personality into their own space without it feeling too themed or short-lived?
Yes and no. I think about my own personal, and my son loves trucks and books, as they all do, I guess. But I went with him to an antique mart recently and allowed him to pick out a few really old matchbox trucks and that kind of thing. And I'm like, these can live in your room. Like, why don't we put these in your room? And so those live on his shelves. We swap out books that go on his bookshelf that he loves. But I think as kids get older too, like I think about his art. I frame his art and put it up in his room. So that feels really special to him. I think going back to what we were first talking about in the beginning, though, is it's everybody knows their kids and their personality. My son doesn't really care aside from those things, but I've worked with clients whose sons very much care. They have a favorite color. They want their favorite color in there. Great. Let's do it. Tell me what your favorite color is. Or they love their stuffed animals or they have art. I think all of those little, more decorated and accessory ways are great ways to add personality and their special thing to their room because those are interchangeable. But also if they love stripes or they love cars, or it's a good way to, stripes are easy to put on bedding. That's easy to change later. It doesn't necessarily have to be wallpaper or drapery. They love cars. Great. Let's frame a bunch of car prints, or let's find an old, cool, like massive car that can sit in the side of their room that they can play on. I think, again, it goes back to having this conversation in the very beginning and kind of figure out how to incorporate it. But also, if you're not working with a designer, but you're just wanting to decorate your own home, you kind of know what your child is into, right? Like, is your daughter really girly, or she's really not? So then lean into that as you're decorating their home. Does your child not care right now? Great. Take the opportunity to do sort of what you want to do. It makes you happy too. Like, I think you kind of know and can go with that in a way.
I can see all that. I have to say, I would have never thought about bringing my child into any kind of antique kind of market, but I love it. I think I might take you up on that. I can
Yeah.
see how there would be things that they might find that was interesting that I might like to have that would frankly look a little nicer in the space. So I like it.
And it's unique too. It's like another one of those moments of, remember when we went and picked this out,
Yeah.
but also it's not something you can Amazon. And so it's just cool and it's different. And I really, really encourage, I know it's my type of design, but you can also find mid-century modern pieces. It doesn't have to be, the old brown furniture when you go to antique. It's like they've been used before. They're okay to live in a room with children. Like, they have lived a life. Keep living. Like, it's fine. They're not precious. They're not new. Have fun with it. It could even be a rug, an old rug. Layer it in there. The kids love it. You can throw it out later if you want, or not. Like, yeah.
I'm definitely going to use this concept. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk as we wrap up sort of this design area of our discussion about parents who are working with a designer, and if you have any best advice for that parent on making the relationship, frankly, the most beneficial it can be.
Mm-hmm. I've said this a million. It's funny, I didn't realize that I felt this way until talking with you, but I think just being upfront and transparent with your wants and your needs, whether that's you want to be fully in the design process or you don't. This is my budget. These are the things that I love and hate. I want to be around when you're installing, or I don't. I think the more information you can give, the better. And being honest in how you live, right? Like, my kids are always going to be in the living room. Like, it really can't be a precious space right now. Or my kids are not allowed in the living room. They have their own bonus room upstairs. Let's make this an adult space. Or my child still sleeps in a crib even though he's 5. I'm just, whatever. Like, whatever it is, like, let us know, because there's always an answer. Always, always, always an answer. No judgment. There's a way to make it nice. And I think just being upfront with what you want and your expectations in the beginning saves everybody a lot of time and money.
I can see that. I can really see that. And frankly, learning how to be comfortable about being upfront to the person you're working with, if it's a designer, I can see that being something that someone might not necessarily feel, but how important it would be, because you could get like halfway through and then suddenly realize that whatever the designer's vision is not your vision. And if you haven't communicated this, frankly, the person you're working with has no idea.
Right. But in so many aspects, right? Like, not just design, but budgetary, or like timeline, or how involved do you want to be in the decision making? A lot of what I do is I'm talking to the contractors and I'm just making these little minute decisions because I kind of know what looks good. Do you want to be a part of it, or am I taking that off your plate and giving you more time? Like, open communication and all, because every single one of my clients is very different in every single one of those things. And I just want to I'm here to help you. And so it just being open from the beginning is very helpful.
Let's talk about parenting insights. We've all been there. And frankly, parenting is about being in the thick of it. If parents of older children tell me it's always like that. I'm currently in the younger children. I'm just past infants. I'm in the toddlers, preschoolers, almost moving to grade school. But, I think that we've all been there in a whole variety of moments. And I want to hear from you about some things that might provide each of us some sort of parenting inspiration. So let's talk for a minute. I understand, because you and I are really good friends, that you just had your second child, Birdie.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How old is she now?
3 months.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yes.
Almost 3 months. You're past immediate newborn, but certainly what I would still call in the newborn phase. And then you have a son who's also a toddler, preschooler, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's 2.5.
Okay. So let's talk real parenting moments here for a minute. Parenting flops. They're just a way of life. We're all humans. We don't do everything right all the time. Our children don't do everything right all the time. Is there a biggest sort of parenting flop for you that if you could redo it, you'd change?
You and I were texting about this earlier, which I think is nice to say because we can tell the audience that I was like, there's been so many, but which ones are the most helpful to actually talk about? And you and I touched on childcare, and I do want to say that as a working mother, but I think anybody, accept help, look for help. And if you're able to have help in some capacity, I wish I knew that sooner. But I don't really want to talk about it too much because I also know it's a luxury. And so I was kind of thinking what are other things that I wish I had known with my first, and now am I trying to do it differently, or can I look back, etc. So you and I kind of talked, and I look back now on when my son, who's 2.5, and he's a very curious kid. And I could see that from the very beginning, but he's also very much like me. And so I really encouraged him to yeah, buddy, go look at it. Go climb that rock. You'll figure it out. You do you. You want to explore, great. That's all good. Because I felt like as a child, I was put in a box and I had to behave a certain way. And this is how children are. And my parents didn't understand my curiosity. And so I really leaned into it with Win. Well, now that he's almost 3 and he's sassy, I'm realizing that freedom the last 3 years maybe was too much. And I wish that I had actually laid down some rules, either family values or rules of safety or some of these things, because now I think it's feeling a little jarring to him. And I'm realizing that this is going to be something for the future with him and I, right? I want him to explore things and figure things out himself and learn by doing, but also there are rules of the road, and there are certain things you cannot do in life. There are certain things that as Filipskis we don't do. And I'm realizing that I wish I had kind of decided what those hard stops for me were in the earlier. And just did them from the beginning. And so now with Birdie, I'm able to do that. Of course, Birdie's a different child in and of herself, and she's going to have her own things. But I think having those sort of family value rules talked about and figured out earlier would have been very beneficial for me.
I see that. I can see that. I think that the biggest thing that I take away from this for you is that there are a lot of parents, particularly in their 30s and early 40s that I think have lived this same way, which is when we were growing up, there was really hard expectations about how you
Yes.
behave, both in the home and outside of the home. And probably now uh, trying to reverse that, the reverse is no
Too much. Right. Yeah.
expectations
Right.
about those things. And there has to be a happy medium.
Yes.
And I can see how this is something that I think that frankly is true of our generation particularly, and
Yeah.
is something that will evolve, right? But the other piece to it is none of us are perfect. And frankly, there are going to be things in our lives, particularly as parents, that we don't do right, that we wish we had changed at some point. And and recognizing that, right? The thing I think the most about is I'm human. My child's human. My husband's human. The people I interact with other kids are human. So I try to sort of just frame my expectations based on that. None of us are perfect. Are there things that other people do that I wouldn't do? Sure. Uh, my mom likes to talk about how I'm a twin, and she went to our pediatrician and was struggling with something about how to do it right. And she said, her pediatrician looked at her and said, Anna, there's a million ways to raise children, and they're all right. And I think
Yeah.
that that's the other piece that we forget about is we also expect like perfection. And
Yeah.
that's the piece when I think about when I say we're all human, right? We're not perfect. And we can do redos, right? I frankly talk about redos with my son all the time, who's almost 5, which is sort of a funny segue here for a minute, but I like the idea, so we'll talk about it. And he, when he as a 5-year-old does something that isn't right, and we talk about it, and I say, and he sometimes gets upset and says, "Oh, I realize, Mom, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I shouldn't have jumped off the couch, or I shouldn't have, taken the milk out of the refrigerator. I should have asked for help instead." And I'll, and for really serious things, if he gets particularly emotional about them, I'll say, "You know what, John? Would you like a redo?" And that like changes the dynamics, right? He recognizes that that what he did wasn't exactly how he wishes he had done it. And then he goes and tries to think about, okay, how would I do it instead?
Yeah. I think it's all these life lessons, right? Like you're saying this, and I'm realizing too that a lot of it is me worried about the way that I'm parenting and how I will parent in the future, as opposed to needing to redo my son. And I think that's the thing to always remember, right? Is it's like there are redos, but also each person is different, each child is different. And you as a parent are also different. I am not the same as I was when I was 25. I'm not the same as I was when Wynn was born versus when my daughter was born, too. I've lived a life with a toddler so far. And so I think, yes, to your point, give yourself some grace, realize that there are redos, but also you're very good because you have a lot of insight and you can kind of see what needs to I know, but what needs to happen with the child or give them this opportunity to have a redo. And so I think being able to sort of see outside of your, what am I trying to say, like an insular problem is very helpful.
Yeah. I also love the concept of grace, right? If we could all just live with more grace in our lives, I think as parents, as humans, as children, life would be that much sweeter.
Yep, I agree.
Let's talk for another sort of parenting inspiration point here, which is, can you talk to us about sort of your best in the thick of it advice to parents? It's real, it's gritty. What's your best in the thick of it point?
Just breathe. I think it has to be. Like, it's like, man, it is hard sometimes, but also then you move on.
Yeah.
And so I think just breathe. And I tell my son that too. I tell my husband that too. Like, just take a breath, because it's always evolving. It's always changing. Whether that you're in the newborn stage and you feel like you haven't showered, your baby isn't sleeping, you know what? They do soon. And it does change. Or you're in the middle of it with your toddler and he just is screaming and hitting. Well, generally at age 15, boys aren't doing that. So it changes, like it always is. And so I just have to take a minute. I'm like, I need to be a constant, somewhat calming person in this relationship. And so I just need to take a breath, realize that it's all going to change. We will move through it. And I think being a calming force as a parent is very helpful. As a partner, it's very helpful. As a business person, it's very helpful. And so I've realized with myself that I just have to take a minute, take a beat, realize that it's not probably on me. It's also maybe not even my child realizing what they're doing, but having that regenerating, like taking a pause, taking a breath, I think is very, very, very helpful.
On that point, I have a very good friend who gave me a little bit of advice before I had my first child. And she said, Marie, you hear of these horrible stories of people shaking children. And before you have children, you can't ever imagine being that parent. She said, and she is a wonderful parent, by the way. And she said to me, and then you have a newborn child and there's something that happens. She said, and suddenly you're there, and in the moment you're like, I could be the shaking parent. I can't believe this of me. And she said the best piece of advice for her was that kind of moment will happen in your life where you're just like I'm at my wit's end and I need to be sure my child's safe. And she's like, put them in the crib and walk out of the room. Away. Take a breath. Take a minute for yourself. She said they will 100% always be safe in that crib. So regroup and then come back. And I sort of laughed at the advice. And then once I had my son, and I can't even remember now, looking back, what it was, and being in the moment and saying, okay, Karen's right. Put him in the crib. I'm going to be fine. He's going to be fine. But just take a minute and breathe.
Yep. I think the other thing, which is different, but with all of this, but it goes with what you're just saying too, is leaning into your friends, generally mom friends. If there's something that I did not know or didn't give enough credit to in the beginning, was other moms and the mom tribe. I mean, man, is there help and strength in that. Like, the moment you become a mother, you all of a sudden realize all these other women and what they're doing and how they can help you and the things they went through that you didn't even realize before you had kids. It's wild to me. That's what I tell everybody who's a first-time mom. I'm like, it's really hard, but lean into your mom friends, because we've all done it and we know exactly how you're feeling. And we have advice, or it gets better, or you just want to cry to us. Great. Like, call me.
Your mom tribe's so important. I hear you. And and finding your village and having your support system, and frankly recognizing that you should be able to find a core group where there is no judgment. It's not like perfection isn't expected, that we've all frankly heard it, or if we haven't heard that thing that's specific to whatever it is for you, we can certainly understand how it could happen.
Or find somebody. Yes.
Or they'll connect you with someone who's like, oh, that wasn't me, but I know someone who that was.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, that was the biggest help for me when in the beginning. And now that I look back and have friends who are new mothers or just in a new stage of life, I'm like, I get it. Like, I got you.
Here at Marabou, we focus on helping parents find the right products easily. So let's talk baby and child products for a moment. Becky, what's the one infant product that you couldn't live without?
This may be controversial, but my baby Brezza. Breastfeeding did not work for me. I tried. You were actually the one that my son probably hadn't eaten for a week and was like, just give him some formula. And so I think that has helped. It has taken a load off my guilt. It has taken a load off my time. My husband can do it. I can do it. We love it. It is a non-negotiable for me. I think everything else has a competitor that maybe you could say, oh, I like this for you, or I like this for you, and you're like, but there's not another one.
No.
And I absolutely love it.
The baby Brezza is one, a fairly newer product. So,
Yes.
but also something that is so particular and necessary for certain parents, because the thing that like you don't remember except as a really expectant parent is what you think's going to happen may not happen, right? So we have all these expectations as an expectant parent who's never had a child about, oh, I'm going to breastfeed, or I'm not going to breastfeed, or it's going to, I'll pump in some form. And you have your child, and whatever you thought was going to happen, it might happen, or it might not happen. It might not happen in an extreme. It might not happen in just a small form, but recognizing that you just have to adjust. There's so many nutritionists out there who talk about a fed baby is the most important thing, which is step one. And if you find that you're struggling, finding a support system that helps you figure out what the right feeding way is for your child is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an opinion on how people feed their children. Fed is best in my opinion, but also if you are hardcore breastfeeding, great. It just literally didn't work for me. I could not produce. It wasn't even a choice at this point. And so I think just accepting that and realizing, okay, like what do we do now was very helpful for me.
Let's talk new products. Is there any kind of new product that you're using as a second-time mom around with Birdie that you didn't use with your first child?
We bought the Doona, which I didn't use with Win. I didn't think that we needed it. And I don't know that you even still need it per se, but it is very, very helpful. I understand why people have it. I understand why it was invented. I love it. We use it every day. It's nice even in the house to be able to plop her in, and it is high enough that it's safe from the dogs and wind too. That was the main thing that we switched between the two.
So Doona being that it's both a infant car seat and that converts into a stroller. It's all attached. It makes it's much simpler. It's interesting you say that, because I like to talk about like what sort of buckets families live in a location standpoint. So are you suburban?
Yes.
Are you oral? Are you rural? Are you somewhere in that mix? And and then the fourth is really traveler. Are you a traveler? To me, like that's your starting point in evaluating what the right products are for you is location, because it impacts your living so much. And it's funny, you're a suburban family, and the Doona so much is emphasized for urban families because they're on the go and they're in taxis a lot or some other car service, but not driving personally. Like they don't have a car seat stored in their car all the time. And then you think about it, the Doona a lot for travelers. But the secret, it really is suburban moms. So the fact that you say this is, I really appreciate it, because I know a lot of suburban moms, particularly as second or third time or fourth time parents, but like later on in the parenting process, who are like, I just need ease. And, life is hard enough for me in managing, my child in and out of the car. And actually, I'm in the car a lot. And it's just easier for me to have a whole system that's connected than to have to take the car seat out into the stroller and just go through that process.
It feels safer to me, is honestly the reason that we have really leaned into it. Is there is that 5 seconds of needing to take her out of the car seat and put together a stroller to put her in, dealing with my toddler is game changer. Like the fact that it's like she's out and she's safe and she's locked in immediately is helpful. And then also to your point, it's like she can immediately go in a friend's car. She can immediately go in a nanny's car. She can immediately go in my husband's car. There's no other attachment. She is just good to go. But we honestly leave her in it in the house so often. If she's in it already and she's coming in, we just leave her in the Doona. It's up high enough that it's safe from the dogs and the toddler. It's a good, safe spot. It really has felt in this time period very helpful. I will say, since we're talking about products, the main reason that I didn't get it for my son, and I now looking back realize that it wouldn't have been as helpful, is it really is just an infant car seat. So there is a finite period of time that it's useful. My son was huge from the get-go, and I don't think that he would have actually fit in it for very long. So it's something to keep in mind that it really is just your infant car seat, as opposed to being able to transition, with a different seat or base later on.
Yes, and the funny thing is that what so many parents don't think about is that the size of your child matters, right? So
Yes.
you think as an expectant parent, oh, I want XYZ product because it feels like it's going to be right for me, but you don't think about, oh, what are that child's genes, or where are they measuring, or what's the likelihood about sizing for this child?
Yep.
Because it matters an incredible amount. Like in fact, some strollers I would recommend because they're longer. Like we have a travel stroller. The Bob is exceptional in that it's one of the longer, not travel strollers, but running strollers. The Bob is a really good long running stroller. There are a lot of other good running strollers. They're just not as long. And for me, because I was so active, I knew, okay, I use my running stroller not just running, but hiking and other areas in which I was like, I want it not for when my child's 2. I want it for when they're 5. And so it's like length for me is going to matter in that regard. I don't have really long or big kids, but I knew that the longevity of it was a big factor for me. And for you, the size of your son impacts, well, what car seat is right. Frankly, what double stroller is right. Like there are all these things where his size really does matter.
Yeah. He doesn't fit in half of the little kid strollers anymore. And so when we were deciding what to do as a double stroller or how we were going to have 2 children, he was the determining factor. He does not fit in a lot of the strollers that are meant for toddlers. And so it was really interesting. And I think it's been helpful with what you do to be able to know that and have that specific feedback, because before I was kind of having to crowdsource and test them out myself because I couldn't just get the cute popular one that everyone had. He truly didn't fit in it.
And that's life, right?
Yep.
So choosing products is also like life. So too bad. Sometimes it just doesn't work and you're just going to have to move on from that.
Yeah.
Last question. Do you have a product fail moment where you wished a product performed better, or even just you totally failed at using it?
I do. And it's a weird product and I never knew if it was me or not. The Bjorn front carrier, it was always stiff and it never fit. And we talked about my son being big. I don't know if it was him not fitting in it or me not knowing how to use it. We still have never used it. I ended up buying a different brand for my daughter and realizing that having something which I think is a new design too, is just like a little bit cozier and more flexibility, is really nice for transitioning from when they're itty bitty infants to then putting their feet out, then front facing. And so that was a big fail for me. And I still don't know if it was me or my son or the product or what. I have another one too that I think is very helpful because it was also my non-negotiable product. So the baby Brezza. Cannot live without it. However, I realized between my son and my daughter, a life lesson I learned is she has to be on sensitive formula, which is much finer, and it clumps very, very easily. And it took me weeks to realize that the baby Brezza, it had all clumped up in it because I hadn't cleaned it out as regularly. And she was basically just drinking water and it upset her stomach. And so finally I figured out that it's like, oh, very much dependent on the type and brand of the formula. You can adjust the Brezza. You have to clean it an appropriate amount. So that was a mom fail on my part, not the product itself, but a note that I did not realize.
You live and you learn.
That's right.
I will say about the Bajorn, I had a air mesh Bajorn. I hear your comments about it being stiffer. I actually liked it. I liked it because of how active we were. But I will say oftentimes a lot of carriers, you have to frankly learn how to use them when you have someone else around to help you, who can be like, oh, let's adjust it this way. This is how you put it on. This is how you put your child in. And it's honestly almost like practice. And you do that many times. And then you learn, oh, this is how I'm going to be able to do that same thing by myself.
Yeah. Even with the new carrier that we have, just yesterday, I was sitting there with my husband and my nanny being like, are her legs too wide apart? Like, is it supposed to be like this? And we realized that I had it around my hips as opposed to around my waist. So yeah, it probably was too wide. It's just, yes, to your point, trial and error, but also we talked about grace, giving yourself some grace, even though it's frustrating trying to figure out products. I think with what you're doing is so helpful and so good because it really is crowdsourcing and giving suggestions on what would work for your lifestyle. So we talked about in design, right? Everything is specific to your lifestyle and how your family's living. And I think the products are the same way. And it's really helpful to be able to crowdsource, but also have you as a resource because there's something for everybody, but it might not be what you initially think you're going to be using.
And you're right. I think you're right. Products, there's so much overlaps between finding the right product, finding the right designer. But certainly if you're struggling, having a sounding board to talk through whatever products are working or not working, or frankly, what your needs are, is really important.
Yes, I agree.
Becky, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've loved it. I know our listeners will too. Thank you and have a good day.
Bye, you guys. Thank you so much. See ya.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Modern Parenting Manual. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on YouTube. Your feedback means the world to us and helps others discover our podcast too. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and YouTube to stay updated on upcoming episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and everything else. Thank you again for being part of our podcast community. Until next time, you've got this.